Okay.
Okay.
I'm Ryan Benoit. Most people call me Benny in the Vancouver office. It's very strange. I guess only now my wife calls me Ryan. I've worked at IQ for about 8 years, almost 9, and I've had a couple different roles throughout that time period. It's always changing.
Okay, so first of all, then our relationship is changing. That I'm going to call you Benny now, because I've
Yeah,
always
I
called you.
mean, you
Okay,
can.
okay, Ben.
I mean, there's one, maybe two people at the office that actually call me Ryan, and when they do, I feel like I'm getting in trouble for something.
Well, because I like know 8 years ago Ryan
Yeah,
in the Regina office, but this is now Benny I'm talking with.
yeah, and in Regina, the marketing people called me Google, which just because I knew random facts about pop culture, I think, which seemed impressive. And then when I moved to Vancouver, I don't think any of the people that I worked with there ever wanted to give me leeway to be like, hey, you have all the answers to all the things. So instead they just gave me a simple name and I became Benny.
Excellent. So can you uh, do a bit of a history lesson of what those 8 years have looked like? You say it's changed or whatever?
Yeah, all right. So I worked at jump.ca because I'll start from the beginning. I went to film school, got a film degree in Regina, Saskatchewan. I worked in the film industry slash TV industry for about 2 years. Everything fell through. I worked at jump.ca. I luckily enough turned that into a career at IQ because I was brought on to be a content curator, which then later became a content manager. And all that was we were working on populating product library for the original XQ. And then that just kept going for a long period of time. When we did the reshuffle in the company, I ended up going to the help files team where I took over editing help files. So that became a little bit more in line with like what my education was and where my passion is. And then I want to say a year and a half to 2 years into that, there was another like tiny shuffle. The help files team kind of decided that maybe they didn't need videos right now, so they didn't need anyone to edit it. I was then beached or put on the beach, whatever the proper term is for that. And then I was picked up by people operations or people ops. So now I work with the recruiters and Crystal and the OAs and Marnie to help create like internal kind of material. So essentially my job is to take things and make them look better. Or if someone has an idea but they don't know how to make it, I make it for them. So that could be recruiting videos, kind of like information pamphlets for the IQ Getaway, the IQ Digest. A lot of stuff also goes into IQU. So I've been working with Tracy. I cut a lot of videos. None of your videos, Nevin, because you've learned how to use the scissors. So that's good. But yeah, so I do just kind of a jack of all trades, master of none type thing.
So I didn't know you were on the beach. What was that experience like for you?
It's an interesting experience. I wrote a thing about it, but we didn't end up doing anything with it. How did it? At first, like you're a little bit like, oh, well, this isn't great, and then I think I just quickly made peace with the fact. I was like, this isn't a personal thing. This isn't a slight on me. It was just, I think I kind of adopted the mentality like sometimes business is just business, and the business
Right.
zigged when I zagged, and but it was nice. Like I think the nice part about it wasn't nice. I gotta pay for childcare. The nice part about it is that still through that process, there were plenty of people that were like helping guide me through it and like fighting for me and trying to make sure that I like landed on my feet. And that was regardless if I was with IQ or not. Like
Right.
Adam, the recruiter, was like, I'll help you build up your resume. So if you find something elsewhere, I'm also going to fight to find you something here. Like I'm going to, So it was nice that there's that support system. And when you talk, like, and it's easy to forget when you're in that kind of zone, like, oh man, this is really awful, that there's not a lot of places that'll be like, hey, we don't really have a use for you right now, but we'd like to find a use for you in the next, like, we want to make this work. And when you tell that to anyone outside of this industry, like, I don't have a lot of friends in the tech industry outside of IQ. They're like, no, man, like, if I get laid off, I get laid off. That's the end of it. If there's no job for me, the shop doesn't like let me stick around and mop the floor until a new project shows up. So
I was gonna inquire about how you made this transition from content curation into something that's more aligned with video production and stuff. But then on Just Observe, what I heard is that you got to coax your way in there a little bit with the help file stuff. But then with the Beach process, and I don't want to credit the Beach process if it's unfair, it like accelerated you into a position where you're doing a lot more. I don't know if you're chasing your passion now, but you're doing it a lot more, aren't you?
yeah, I think it's much more in line with, and I really enjoy it. There's a lot of, like, every day is different. And I wouldn't just say it's the Beach process. So one of the other things that kind of, I guess, was the path to where I am through the 8 years was, Crystal early on realized that I had a knack to make things, and she has a lot of ideas, and she can't always go through the traditional channel maybe to do the thing that she needs to do. So early on when I moved to Vancouver, she figured that out, and she started plugging me into projects that were like, well, we need this and it suits your skill set. So right now, in that time, it was a little bit different. So it was like, you're doing content curation, but I also need you to do these other things. So do your job, but also, help plan, like, do all the media stuff for the Christmas parties. And now modern day me, that's one of my accountabilities, and I have to help do it for a few of the offices, right? I don't just do it for the Vancouver office anymore. Like, I helped to do the Regina Christmas party multimedia stuff this year. So yeah, I think there was a bit of people maybe paying attention to, like, hey, this guy probably doesn't want to do data entry for his entire life and has been trained in a creative background.
I think our mind-blowing videos are an essential piece of our brand. So thank you. You got to be here. That has to be a part of what we do. Okay, so the sort of the subtitle of these interviews is what we're learning. So my question is are you doing what you learned in school, or what does it look like now? And maybe I'll even poke you towards this experience we're having with Zoom now, because you were mentioning that before we started recording.
So am I doing what I learned in school? And it's like, yeah, I am. I think a little bit. I think one of the biggest things that I've learned in school was through the creative process is like the blue sky and the gray sky. So blue sky is, sky's the limit, do whatever you want. And then gray sky is, hey, these are the means we have to do it. What can you do? I think that was one of maybe my stronger skill sets, is trying to, like, do it within the means that we have. And so, yeah, I think that really aligns with what I learned in school. And then technical wise, yeah, absolutely. I guess kind of continued my education after school. I honed other skills through passion projects. And now I find, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a parent now and I have a 3-year-old, but I'm much more fulfilled in my day-to-day stuff that I'm doing because it taps into the things that I've honed and developed. So, like, I really like taking photos. Generally, I really like taking photos of cars, but that's changed into now I take photos of events at IQ. Reddy's had me do some marketing photos for them. I do photography on the IQ Getaways, which is super important for employer branding content to have that stuff, because whenever it comes time to apply for an award or promote our employer brand, and you're like, well, we do all these great things, and it's like, did anyone get a photo? And it's like, oh, we just have a couple of selfies on some iPhones and the lighting's really bad. So no, we don't. So it's good to have that stuff kicking around. So yeah, I think on both accounts, I'm doing much more now of what I learned to do while I was in school. And I wouldn't say that I learned a ton in school. I thought I was going to be a producer. I thought I was going to work in a production office and work my way up to be like, I'm going to produce the TV shows and the moving pictures. But it's a weird market to try to enter in Regina, Saskatchewan, and especially now without a film tax credit. Yeah, so I mean, probably 21-year-old me had maybe a few delusions of grandeur, but I think this probably aligns a lot more with what I wanted to do than what I expected I wanted to do.
Thank you. That's really cool. It seems to me, maybe I'm just looking at it from the outside a bit, but that a lot of the content that we do produce, it's not a really structured, organized way to do that. Like, I mean, I think when Crystal sees you and asks you to start doing stuff, she's sort of figuring out how to get that gap filled a little bit.
Yeah.
What's on the horizon in that area? Like, it's not going away, I suppose.
Yeah.
Do you see where do you see your direction in this, or what else is needed?
I think when you look, you're right. Like, there isn't a lot of structure to how things are done, and I think there's good parts to that, and then I think there's some downfalls to that. And one is, it'd be nice to bring up the quality of all, like, kind of content in that sense, like visual videos, to like a certain standard. And I think we're moving in that direction. We finally moved away from shooting on like a 8-year-old DSLR to shooting on like a 4K digital camera that's, like full frame, which is amazing. And then I think there's tons of possibilities with like IQU, because like that's just a constant train of content. A lot of it super interesting and engaging. But yeah, I think it's interesting to see things like right now, and then maybe where they could go if we all just maybe think about it constructively. Like, hey, we're doing this right now, but it's like you said earlier, how did Conan O'Brien get the audio quality to be great? So, on his podcast on Zoom, and it's like, well, they probably started at something that wasn't great and then worked their way up to what they knew that would get there. So I think I would hope that the future holds, like, we start outputting like all of our content is just higher quality content. I don't know.
Just the subtlety of production value, hey?
Yeah.
So do you have advice or suggestion for individuals? Should I get a ring light? Is that what I need to do? Or
so we just got a ring light and it's great, but then it's like, hey, lighting with one light is a little bit tough. Maybe you need a fill light, maybe you want a backlight, so there's 3-point lighting. But yeah, I think a ring light overall is a good like first step. But it's also, hey, like, what's going on in your background? Where are you framed in your camera? So it's like, like I mentioned earlier, I probably tried 4 different locations in my condo before I settled on this one. And I understand that this is still not ideal, but it was the best I could come up with. So it's like, I turned off most of the internal lights in my house. I'm using natural light from the window. I don't have a backlight or anything like that. Audio has never really been my strong suit, so I try to kind of think about it, but that I didn't cover. But yeah, like in doing this, I scouted a few locations in my condo, and so yeah, I think there's a lot, you have to think a lot about what you're putting on the screen, where you're situated in the frame, how you look, what, like spacing. There's rules of thirds, so I can move over here and that says something different, and I can move over here and that says something different. If I change the angle, now am I looking up to you, or now, like these all say very different things about who I am and where I'm coming from. And it also says a lot of different things about how much effort you're putting into like what you're creating.
Wow. I feel very self-conscious now. I want to say that this ironing board was a choice. We might not have liked my choice, but it was deliberate.
I mean, everything you do and don't do in a shot says something about you, I think. So you're a man who cares about pressed shirts. You like your shirts to be wrinkle-free. That's what I've learned about you. You have an ironing board in the shot.
Oh, I think, yeah, okay, I see. I thought you were thinking of Jeff Ball for a moment.
Oh, he doesn't do his own laundry. He pays someone to do that.
Okay, thank you. We could, of course, talk for a long time, but I'm going to draw a line there just so that we keep it to a manageable length of time. But
Okay.
Thank you so much for spending time with me, Ryan.
No problem.
Benny. Sorry, Benny.
There we go. Yeah. What are you, my wife?